Hi there. In today's short video, I'm going to talk about how do you find yourself and know who you really are. My name's Kute, Blackson, nationally best-selling author, transformational teacher, guide, and speaker. Many times we go through life, and have you ever had the feeling where you've wondered who you are? Perhaps you have lived so much of your life for other people. Perhaps you've lived so much of your life for your friends, for your family, for your children, for someone else, everyone else, for society, to be loved, to be validated, that perhaps 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, or 50 years down the road, you wake up one morning and you wonder, who the hell am I? Who am I really? Have you ever had that question? I believe that there's nothing more painful than not knowing who you are. There's nothing more painful than going through life not really being in touch with who you are. The challenge is many times we don't even know that we don't even know. We don't even know that we don't even know who we are, and we think that who we are is who we really are, but often who we are is just who we've been conditioned to be based on our childhood and our programming. The challenge is when you don't know who you really are, you often end up setting goals. You set goals and you have a projection and a purpose based on who you think you are. And so you might end up achieving certain goals only to realize that you're frustrated, that you're unfulfilled, that what you thought you wanted is actually not what you really wanted. It was just what you thought you wanted based on who you thought you were, but you weren't in touch with who you really were. So can you see why it's so important? It is fundamental. It is the foundation of personal growth to know who you are. To know who you really are. Not who you've been told to be, not who you've been conditioned to be, not who you've been expected to, and by media and society to be, but the truth of who you are, to the authentic nature of your being. The challenge is as children. So when we talk about who am I, so the question we have to start asking ourselves is, who am I really? This is the question. Who am I? What am I really? Who would I? So are you being who you really are? That's a place to start. Who am I? And are you being who you really are? And if not, why not? And who would you be if you didn't need to be who you thought you needed to be? What would you say? What would you do? How would you express yourself if you didn't need to do or be or express in the way that you thought you needed to be? Would it be different? Would it look different? Would it feel different? To live in alignment, to live and fully express your truth and live that purely is true freedom. Real freedom isn't just what you have and what you attain and what you achieve, but is that ability to just be authentically, fully yourself. To me, this is true happiness. This is true peace. You can have millions of dollars, but if you're not being who you are, it's not fulfilling. It's not happy. It's an empty trap. And so, who are you is the question that we have to begin. Who am I is where we have to start. Who am I really? The challenge is we've been told so often who we are. You got to be like this. We're born, actually, as children, we're born free. As children, we're often born in touch with our sense of aliveness, our sense of joy. And so how we lost touch with our authentic nature. As children, we're born whole, complete, in touch with that spark of the infinite, right? Alive. You look into a child's eyes, a child is authentic. They laugh, they cry, they express themselves until we're born, and then we meet our parents. And based on what was going on in your life at that time, we all have different stories. Maybe there was pain, abuse, trauma, abandonment. Maybe your parents weren't around. Whatever the scenario or the initial setup was of your childhood affects who you end up being. And so based on what occurred, two things occur. We begin to slowly get conditioned. And the first way is we start contorting ourselves, and we start sort of disconnecting from parts of ourselves in an effort to survive, in an effort to not feel the pain of perhaps our dad being an alcoholic, or our mother not being around, or our emotional needs not being met. Slowly we start to shut down parts of ourselves in order to not feel the pain. We start to disconnect and suppress parts of ourselves in order to not feel the pain of what our environment is triggering inside of us. So we start shutting down, and before you know it, we start suppressing. Layers begin building up, and our true, authentic nature, who we really are, begins to get slowly covered up underneath all of these layers of unfelt, unexpressed emotions and feelings. And we end up kind of carrying this stuff with us as baggage through our entire life. Right? And so we start shutting down in order to not feel pain, but we start disconnecting from the joy. We start shutting down in order to not feel pain, but we start closing our hearts, and we're not fully able to receive love. So that's one. Then we start going into the world, and perhaps your dad or your mother or your primary caregiver said, don't be that way, or they shouted at you for being loud or being funny or whatever it was, or told you boys don't cry, or whatever you were told, or the messages you received consciously or unconsciously start to condition you. So slowly, unconsciously, we often start learning, who do I need to be in order to be loved? Who do I need to be in order to get loved? Who do I need to be in order to be loved, validated, liked by my mother, by my father, by my parents? And so we start to develop all sorts of roles and masks and personas, and we hold so tightly onto these roles, masks, and personas that they get conditioned as a way to get love, validation, approval, to fit in, and we hold so tightly as they get reinforced, and we end up thinking the version of us that's disconnected from our pain, and we've developed this role, this mask, this persona. We end up starting to think that is who I am. It's just who I am. I'm just the shy person. I'm just the nice guy. I'm just the responsible one. I'm just the funny one. I'm just the mental one. I'm just the one that doesn't feel. I'm the caretaker. So we start developing a role, a mask, an identity, and a persona as a way to fit in, be loved, be approved in the world. And we end up living inside of what I call a prison of persona, a prison of personality. We end up then going through our life, our teens and our life, often being stuck inside of this persona that worked for us when we were 5 and 7 and 10 to avoid pain and get love. And we live this way, but usually as we become adults, 20, 30, 40, you start reaching a moment in your life where you start feeling the version of who you've become a little bit limiting. It's not as freeing anymore. This version of who you learn to become to avoid pain and get love now starts limiting your ability to be free, to experience joy, passion, connection, intimacy, communication. And maybe based on this way of being, your relationship ends, or you keep attracting the same type of person over and over again, or you just don't feel free. So my question becomes, is who you are who you really are? Or is it who you've been conditioned to be? Much of who we think we are is simply who we've been conditioned to be, and we end up thinking we are this identity and this persona and the layers that we've built up. Ultimately, you are not your conditioning. The degree to which you're conditioned is the degree to which you don't have free choice, is the degree to which you don't have the ability to choose freely. You're being run by the conditioning of your past and who you think you are, not who you really are. Real freedom is being in touch with who you really are, so you can be present with who you are now, so that you can choose the life that you really want and create from that place of total awareness. So you have to so one key that's important is to begin questioning, who am I? Who am I? Is who I am who I really am, or is it just who I've been conditioned to be? And because many times we don't question ourselves. We don't truly question, who am I really? That question, who am I, what am I, is who I am who I really am. Who would I be if I didn't need to be who I thought I needed to be? As you start questioning yourself, it begins a process. It starts loosening the tight grip that you have on yourself for a sense of safety, for a sense of identity. What if who you were was not who you thought you were? And as you go deeper, you realize that anything that happened to you, your experiences, your pain, your trauma, all these identities, none of this is who you really are. At the depth of your being is your soul, is your spirit, is your essence that is untouched by anything that's ever happened. What you are is beyond all of that. And when you really find out who you really are, the process of finding out who you are is not adding things to you. Essentially, it's unlearning. It's peeling away layers. It's peeling away layer after layer after layer after layer. Wow, no, that's what my dad told me I should be. Wow, no, that's what my grandfather told me I should be. No, that's what television told me I should be. Who am I really? And when you find that, you will feel it. When you find that, you will feel the truth, the authenticity, the power in this is my truth. So the first place to start, folks, begin questioning and see where that questioning takes you. This is really the essence of my work. I help people become aware, and so that they can question, and through questioning, the healing process, the process of healing can begin. If you enjoyed this short video, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. To find out more about the processes I take people through, go to my website, www.kuteblackson.com, where you can find out about my live events and transformational experiences where I help you uncondition yourself and connect you, and that helps you connect with more of who you really are. Much love.